Okay, it says we're live. I don't know whether we are live, but let me know whether you can hear me and see me. It's a slightly cloudy morning here. It's not too bad, 12 degrees centigrade, and I've got a lot of stuff sitting on the desk, so all things may happen. Is there anybody there? Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me, Clem Fandango? By the way, strong coffee today. My brother-in-law Gavin gave me a kilo. Franny says loud and clear, you hear me? Yeah, my brother-in-law Gavin gave me a kilo of what's called Hitman coffee. It's a roastery in Sydney, and the caffeine levels of Hitman coffee are twice as much as a normal coffee. So if I go a bit manic, it's the coffee, not me. Hi, Peter. Hi, Dick. How you doing? Yeah, so early morning here. Middle-aged good girl's not part of the live stream today. She's having a sleep in. Yeah, so it's almost reindeers shitting on the roof season, which for us is going to be warm. For you guys, not so much. High for sale 100. Yep. I mean, if you're in Australia, you know it's going to be warm. It's probably going to be wet. We're getting quite a wet summer at the moment, but not in an erotic way. But so I've got a few things going here. I'm not going to do what I've been watching because I'm going to do a video on what I've been watching for the Wednesday video this week. And we'll get this out of the way quick. Stephanie, our niece, Sal's niece, my niece, her funeral's tomorrow. And we've got to go to that. So I'm going to get the Wednesday video ready today. And yeah, it's going to be a bit hard, but we'll get through it. And a lot of people have sent support and love to the family about that. And that's really appreciated. I really do appreciate that a lot. Dog's dad says, I wasn't expecting a live chat today. It's on schedule. Every 2 Mondays, my time, or Sundays, most people's time, we get a live chat. Sometimes we get them on the other Mondays as well because I haven't been able to get a video ready, but it just depends on what's happening there. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate the kind words there. So we're going to get that done. The rest of the live stream is not going to be about that, but we really appreciate the support we've got. I'm going to do given that Dick's here, Dick Powers is here, I'm going to do the gifts that Dick and Carol sent me from Dover. They sent me a big box of stuff. Inside were some Linda balls, which middle-aged good girl and I have already eaten, and some Haribo Star Mix, which middle-aged good girl and I have already eaten. But there are also movies and other things in there. So I'm going to start with the haul that Dick and Carol and Roxy, the cat, sent me from Dover. Haven't watched any of them yet. It's been a week, but here they are, and they're marvelous. First one's a movie called The Happy Family with Stanley Holloway, Kathleen Harrison, and Norton Wayne. It's about the Festival of Britain. It says down here, it's the wittiest comedy in years. Now, the year it was made was probably around 1952, given the Festival of Britain was around 1952. I haven't seen this one, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. That's the first one. Festival of Britain did get mocked a bit. I mean, I remember Noel Coward wrote a song mocking the Festival of Britain in 1952, which was this big patriotic festival and cultural festival they had all over England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and Northern Ireland, sorry, during 1952 to make Brits feel better after 7 years of post-war rationing. This one I've talked about on the channel, but I didn't actually have a physical copy of. It's a really nice little crime movie starring Richard Todd, one of the short kings of English cinema, Peter Sellers and Elizabeth Sellers, called Never Let Go. It's about a guy played by Richard Todd who is a salesman who needs a car to do his job, and his car gets stolen, and he tracks down who's stolen it. And it's stolen by a crime gang run by Peter Sellers. Fantastic movie, this one. Gritty little crime flick. Very dark. And that one I really highly recommend. Fantastic little film. Good morning, Siren 858. So I got that. Again, these things are hard to find here in Australia. It is, English crime dramas of a certain era don't really get much of a release here. And historically, they really haven't. There's a lot of American stuff. There is some English stuff, but it tends to be the obvious stuff that gets released here in Australia. And here is James Joyce's Ulysses. Haven't watched this one. I've tried to read the novel unsuccessfully. Hi, Deb. How you doing? Deb in Nipaluna. What's the weather like in Hobart? You got to tell me. So I've got James Joyce's Ulysses. Yep, Dick says, glad you all got to you safely. Yeah, it did. This one got Milo O'Shea, it has. Bit of James Joyce doesn't hurt. A little bit of culture. It's windy and not too cold, says Deb. D. says, sorry for your news. Best to you and Sally. Thank you. We really appreciate it. It's been the last couple of months have been quite difficult. Martin Sheen is John F. Kennedy. They don't talk too much about his nephew, if you know what you know. But Sheen as Kennedy was an obvious one. It's a miniseries, it says, the complete miniseries. So we've got 2 discs there. Not sure how much of it's going to be a hagiography and how much of it's going to be genuine, but Kennedy was fond of the ladies. And they were quite fond of him too. Best of Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Always like a bit of Pete and Dud, even like a bit of Derek and Clive. So, yeah, those two, fantastic comedy pairing. And you can see them trying to one-up each other in the comedy as well, particularly Peter Cook. There's always that kind of comedic antagonism between the two guys, which I really like. It did lead to a falling out between them, but they eventually reconciled. But a bit of fun there. And this one, I believe, is about Donald Trump's sons. I don't have any evidence for that. Cocaine Fiends. One of those films warning us about the dangers of drugs and other vices. Dick and Carol definitely know where my sweet spot is. Dog's Dad says, on the lighter side, where did I get the ramen shop hat that I wore in a previous video? I got it from Temu.com, and it was cheap. Let me see if I can grab the ramen hat. The hat he's talking about is this one, which I love. Great hat there. Friday says, Derek and Clive is brutal, and you can hear Cook's resentment of more success in America. Yeah. Peter Cook was a comedy genius, and more so than Dudley Moore, but Dudley Moore being cute and cuddly and willing to fillet the American Hollywood system, had more success. Forso 100 says, put on a striped sweater and a floppy hat on RFK Jr. and he looks just like Freddy Krueger. I think that's a disservice to Robert Englund, but I understand what you're saying. Friday says, Derek and Clive is also amazingly funny. It is. It's really transgressively funny, and it really works. Is there a lot of bother between yourself and the Northern Hemisphere, says Ken? No, they stay on their side, I stay on my side. We don't tend to talk about it. But, I've been to the Northern Hemisphere a number of times. Had a good time each time I went there. But the USA is such a weird place. Dick says, miss what you said about the Kennedy TV series we had an ad. What I said was that Martin Sheen's the perfect person to play Kennedy. And and it's a mini-series, so it's kind of good. And I said that Kennedy was fond of getting his leg over. Then we've got 5 DVD collection, all of the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes movies. These are in the public domain, so they turn up a lot on the streaming services. but I like having a copy of it. What do we got here? The Secret Weapon, Dressed to Kill, Pursuit in Algiers, The Woman in Green, and Terror at Night. One of which has Gail Sondergaard in it, and I like that one. So it's nice to have a physical copy of these. Then we get to a big batch here, a whole bunch of Chaplin movies. Now I've actually got these, but the copy I've got is fatter than this one, so I'm getting rid of the other one. We've got City Lights, Gold Rush, Modern Times, The Kid, and a very dark movie of his later in his career, Monsieur Verdoux, which I really like. It's got Martha Ray in it as well, that one. There's tons of extras on these. And there's booklets about each one as well. So it's a fantastic bunch of Chaplin films. And the last thing I got is 40 years of John Barry's film music on CD. So that's kind of cool. I can play that. And there's a booklet in there as well. I'm kind of rationalizing my CDs, but this is definitely one I want to keep. Let's see. D. Lee says a young Kelsey Grammer also appeared in Kennedy as one of his brother-in-laws. Yeah, he's got that kind of style about him, Kelsey Grammer. Ramsar's here, 74 degrees, 23 degrees centigrade in West LA on Sunday at high noon. Cool. And Forsale says Basil Rathbone made 14 Sherlock Holmes movies and they're all fun to watch. Yeah, well, I think I've got a good sampling plate of them there. So thank you very much again to Dick and Carol and Roxy for the lovely gifts. Just that coffee is really strong. It's not bad coffee. It's like, I'd say, a 7 out of 10 coffee. But it's really strong. Double strength coffee beans. And I don't know how many of you are coffee snobs, but I am, because it's the best kind of snobbery to have. The other thing is, I forked out for something which is on its way. I'm going to do a video about it. But I'll tell you about that in a moment. Dog's Dad says, just returned from Japan, visited the Godzilla head atop the Gramercy Toho building. Do you know that if there'll be a follow-up to Godzilla -1? Yeah, there's a Godzilla -0 in production already. So those guys are really going to keep the franchise going in that particular realm. So there'll definitely be a Godzilla -0. It's in pre-production already. And given the fact that they did Godzilla -1 with such a small team, I don't expect it to be terribly, terribly, terribly long before it comes out. By the way, I did go to Toho Studios as well. In 2019, I went to Toho Studios. There's nothing there apart from a giant life-size Godzilla mural on top of an 8-story building they've got, a magnificent 7 mural, and Mothra is painted at the back of the car park. That's all you can see there. It's in a little suburb, kind of a slightly upmarket suburb, in west of Tokyo City. Took me 2 trains and a bus to get there. And when I got there, there was nothing except for these murals and a kind of human-sized Godzilla statue. Franny says, Nigel Bruce's Duffer Watson portrayal is very inaccurate to the books, but it was my first exposure to Sherlock Holmes, so I still have a fondness for it. But the best turnaround has to be Without a Clue, where Holmes is an idiot and Watson the genius. Yeah, because it's in the public domain, you can do so much finger painting with Holmes and Watson these days. Dick says, it's been rainy here in Dover all day. Glad you like them, and then we'll work on the next parcel. Wow, thank you. You guys have the best thrift stores, op shops, charity stores out in your part of the world. I have discovered a new realm of op shops here. When I went to Maui to visit the sister-in-law and the family, they got some good stuff in op shops there. I got that Alan Ladd movie collection there. So what I'm going to do next time we go is we're going to go on a Saturday or a Sunday or maybe a weekday, and I'm going to go to all of the little towns around there as well and get all the good shit out of the op shops because nobody else is doing it. I think it's because there's a slightly older population there. They croak and their movie collections end up in op shops. So I can get some bargains there. It's just, it's like mining for opal. You got to keep digging until you find a vein of it and then just mine that vein until you got everything you need out of it. Got sinus problems at the moment. I'm sorry about this. By the way, one of the great found footage movies of all time, kind of found footage, collage almost of movies, is being released on Blu-ray. It's a movie called The Movie Orgy. And Joe Dante put it together when he was a film student. And it's basically a whole bunch of different clips he pinched and put together with no rhyme or reason. It's got TV ads, it's got bits of TV episodes, it's got bits of old movies, all collaged together in a 4-hour movie orgy, basically. It was done in the late 1960s. And pirate copies of it have been around. There are torrents of it, I believe, as well. But the American Genre Film Association is putting it out on Blu-ray. And I bit the bullet and paid out for it. It was quite expensive for an Australian because it's exchange rates and tyranny of distance, all that. But the movie Orgy is out on physical media, and I'm blown away by that. I love that. It is just such a weird collage of movie bits from like the silent era all the way until the 1960s. Just an amazing little piece of editing apart from anything else. And you got to remember, this was done in the days when you had to splice together film strips. It wasn't a digital thing. But the movie Orgy, I'm looking forward to that arriving. Ramsar said, Godzilla Minus Zero is a sequel to the acclaimed Godzilla Minus One, coming in late 2026. Written, directed, and visual effects by Takashi Yamazaki. Looking forward to it. So am I. I mean, there was an emotional depth to Godzilla Minus One, which surprised me. And I've got the 4K of it. Mostly because it's a movie I think deserves the highest resolution you can afford to have it in. Just an amazing piece of cinema, an amazing retcon of the story of Gojira. Just blew me away and still does. Friday picked up a great find in CEX last week, the complete Thin Man collection on DVD, all 6 movies, and a bonus disc with 2 documentaries on William Powell and Myrna Loy. The Thin Man movies are just such fun. And Myrna Loy and William Powell playing off each other. They're one of the great movie partnerships that doesn't get talked about enough. They're just amazingly great together. And Myrna Loy had been in movies at the time for at least 15 years. And she was playing like evil Asian witch ladies and things like that. And then as her career matured, she was developed as this talent for comedy with William Powell. And they are brilliant together. And by the way, I'm looking on the roof of the house next door. And Luna is up there prowling the roof of the house next door, slowly stalking along their gutters. She's a mad cat. Then that's why you haven't got Luna here in the video, because she's over on the neighbor's roof over there, just slowly stalking her way along there like she owns the universe. If I tap on the window, she's going to get startled, but I won't. So what have people been watching? I'm going to do a video about what I've been watching, which is the next video I'm going to put out. And it's all the stuff that I haven't talked about already on the channel that I've been watching over the last 2 weeks or so. So what have you guys been watching? And what do you recommend? I want to see Troll 2. I may do that today. Troll 2 is a sequel to Troll. It's not the really bad Troll 2 from the 1980s. It's a new Scandinavian horror movie. which is on Netflix. And I'm looking forward to watching that too, because I think I need something a bit kind of Northern European kaiju at the moment. And Luna is back up this end of the roof again. She's rubbing against the guttering because she always likes to put her mark on things. Always keep an eye on her when she's up in high places ever since she got impaled on a dragon once. You know the story about Luna being impaled on the dragon? And we had some very big health scares with her about 18 months ago. Do you remember that story? Because I'll tell it again if I have to. And are you guys getting ads? Let's see. Friday said, caught up with Stranger Things, watched season 4 and then straight to season 5. Cool. Haven't watched season 5 yet. Sorry about this cough, but the sinuses are catching up on me. Yeah, I will watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. And I'm probably going to do a Wikipedia recap to remind me what season 4 was like, because I have watched it. Friday says, I remember Luna's accident. Yeah, Luna jumped off a fence, and we've got like a stone sculpture of a dragon. And one of the wings is quite pointy with the tip of the wing is shaped like this. And she got impaled in her belly on that tip, and it's stuck there because of the taper at the bottom of the wingtip. And we had to smash the statue and take her into the vet. And it took about 2 or 3 months to get all of the healing done, because even though we put the cone of shame on her, she kept knocking it off and licking the wound, and it got infected again. It was a whole thing. It cost a lot of money. It was quite worrying about it because she's our baby, and now 18 months later she's climbing on rooftops again. So that's the Luna story. Really, really tough time for us. B Garvey 21 says, really love the first Troll movie. Generally like Scandinavian movies. Me too. Peter says, Empress Luna, Queen of the Universe. Yeah, she owns the world, does Luna. Notham says, season 5 of Stranger Things is better than I anticipated. Cool. For Sale at 100 watched Seven Footprints to Satan, a 1929 horror comedy this morning. They just uploaded a nice print of it to YouTube. Thelma Todd stars in it. Cool. Friday says to be Garvey 21. Rare Exports is fantastic and a Christmas movie to boot. Yeah. Ken Riddell watched Angel Heart. Yeah, with the wonderful Robert De Niro. Good choices there. I did watch a series that went one season. It was like 6 episodes from about 2023. It's a series, science fiction series called Moonhaven, about a moon colony in like 200 or 300 years from now, being run by an AI, where the AI creates like an island of greenery and wonderfulness on the moon. It's about mid. I don't recommend you spend the 6 hours I did watching the thing, but it's kind of interesting if you're a science fictional completist. But it never got the season 2 it needed, because right at the end of season 1, everything comes to a head and all of the gears are in motion, and they never did a season 2, which is annoying as hell. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, I think it's on Prime Video at the moment. You might want to check out Moonhaven. Peter's rewatching Adam McGoyan's Exotica and the Neon Demon, guilty pleasure. There's no guilt about this. Friday's also in the middle of watching Moonbase 3, which I think was the 1980s series. Deb's watching Pluribus. It reminds me of Richard Matheson's stories. Been watching some old science fiction on YouTube between celebrating misbehaving and watching England lose cricket. Cool. Yeah, I've got to watch the latest episode of Pluribus. I haven't done that yet. Got to download and watch that, because I am engaged with Pluribus. Fantastic series. Great premise. Terrific acting by Rhea Seehorn. Ray Seahorn it is. She's just incredible in this movie, which she has to carry so much of the burden of the acting. And her character has such a groundedness about it. If you haven't seen Pluribus, you should really check it out. I know middle-aged good girl's going to watch it when the whole series downloads. She won't watch it week by week. She'll wait till everything's there and then binge it. Peter's also working his way through the complete BBC set of the goodies, lost episodes and all. The goodies is interesting because it's a kids' series. Tim Book Taylor, Bill Oddie, and Graham Garden. But it started out kind of racy. There's like naked tits in early episodes of the goodies, and you don't expect that. It's like in the pilot episode of the Stargate TV series, there was full frontal female nudity. And yeah, that was kind of unexpected. Friday says, Mimbo 3 is in 1973. I'm thinking of Star Cops. The reason maybe because the main character in both unrelated shows is called David Calder. Yeah, I think I am. But yeah, Mimbo 3 I should check out at some stage. If, to watch everything I want to watch, I'd have to live to about 300. And I'm willing to try that. I'm willing to go there if required. Coffee's gone a bit cold, but it's still incredibly caffeinated. The other thing to talk about too is Netflix buying Warner Brothers. And that's causing a big kerfuffle on the internet as well. Netflix has spent so much money buying Warner Brothers, it's crazy. And people have got concerns about that because Netflix, I like some of the stuff Netflix does. I'm not going to be shy about that. Netflix did the edit on Orson Welles' The Other Side of the Wind and released that on streaming, a movie that I never thought I would live to see. The last great film by Orson Welles, and it is great. It is mind-blowingly good and mind-blowingly different from anything else you've seen from Orson Welles. So they've done good things, but they've bought Warner Brothers now. And Warner Brothers, historically, going back 80 years, was the working class studio. It did the gritty working class stories, all the early stuff with Bogart and people like that, and Betty Davis and all of those kind of people. Warner Brothers was always seen as the working class studio, whereas MGM had a pretension to be posh. It wasn't really, it was just highly polished. So Netflix buying Warner Brothers, the concern people have, apart from the fact that it's condensing the ownership of classic cinema and movie history in fewer and fewer organizations, is that Netflix is buying the Warner Brothers back catalog. It's buying the DCU. It's buying Warner Brothers games. It's buying all of those kind of things. And are things going to be available? Are we going to be able to stream classic Humphrey Bogart movies? Are we going to be able to stream a lot of the darker movies that Warner Brothers did in the 1950s? Or are they just going to be shelved because they're not money makers? The reason Netflix is buying Warner Brothers is profit. So they've got a whole bunch of IPs that come along with that. And they're going to do sequels and prequels and mashups between them. They're going to do a lot of those kind of things. And that's where they're going to get their revenue streams from and get paid back for the money they've spent buying Warner Brothers. But what about the back catalogs? What about the classic stuff? What about the history of cinema? Is that going to be shelved, or is it going to become available to people? Is it going to be accessible? Are they going to do 4K releases of things the way they have in the past? A lot of people are concerned about that. Yeah, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck as well. Sorry about this, blowing my nose. Ramsar said, Joe's Dante's movie orgy is close to 7 hours long. I barely remember it. One of the other greats, Great Chase in 1962 and Mondo Carney. Yeah, I like Mondo Carney. Great Chase. Is it the Great Race or the Great Chase? I think it's a Great Race. I'm not that keen on it. I think Jack Lemmon mugging didn't quite work for me. Patrick says, Netflix has a non-insubstantial studio complex here in Albuquerque. I'll have to go over and see if anything new's going on. Yeah, do a bit of spying on it, Patrick. Ken watched Kill Bill, Yuki's Revenge. Okay. Yeah, so all of the classic Warner Brothers stuff is now in the Netflix tent. And a lot of people are very, very concerned on whether we're going to retain access to so much of the history of cinema. And Warner Brothers did some of the great cinema. It moved at least American cinema forward for so many decades, not by being the biggest and the brightest and the most colourful, but making really gritty films. Things like The Black Legion with Humphrey Bogart. Incredible film essentially about the KKK. Movies like that, are they going to be accessible to us? Are we going to be able to appreciate them and nurture them and bring them to new audiences or not? That's the big question. Ramzar said, I just added Awesome Worlds, The Other Side of the Wind to my Netflix list. Thanks. You got to see this. It's an experience. You know how you get some movies where you watch them and they sweep over you and they kind of inhabit you for a while. The Other Side of the Wind's that for me. I would love it to be physically available. Ideally, it'd be something like a Criterion edition, if Netflix can just loosen their fingers a little bit. But The Other Side of the Wind is, and it's one of those movies of Orson Welles that makes me regret that Welles didn't get more financing for his films, because they've got long tails. And things like Mr. Arcadin and the other lesser movies he did, Chimes at Midnight, deserved to be nurtured. And of course they are now. But during that hiatus between movies being made and shown in cinemas briefly, and then suddenly becoming available to own and rent, either physically or digitally, I think Orson Welles was underappreciated in his own time, and that's the tragedy of him. I've got the 3-volume Simon Callow biography of Orson Welles, and it shows just how much movie studios didn't understand him and didn't realize that this guy was, and there's a documentary that says this, a magician of cinema. He conjured things that had never existed before. He was a worldly, sophisticated world traveler. But the movies he made were always a struggle to make, and they were compromised by budget. Which, of course, is a pity. Got a lot of time. By the way, the 3 volumes of Simon Callow's biography of Orson Welles are fantastically, meticulously researched. They're just great. You can dip into each volume and get a different phase of Orson Welles' life. Okay, let's see what else I've got. Fred Flintstone 3419 says, do you have any drive-ins over your way, and have you been to one lately? I think we've got 2 left. One in Coburg, if it's still going, and one down on the Mornington Peninsula in Dromana. I probably should do a video going down to the Dromana one at least. Problem is, it's an hour-and-a-half drive to get back home after that, but I should do it at some stage. Ramazar says, my favourite Orson Welles movie is Touch of Evil, which is one of the best film noirs and a fantastic opening scene. Yeah, I saw that in the cinema. I saw the reconstructed Touch of Evil about 20 years ago at the Astor. And it was fantastic then. I'd seen the previous versions, which were truncated by the studio. And then I saw the reconstructed version. I've got a Blu-ray of the best version of Touch of Evil. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. Again, it is great. Orson Welles. Peter says, Orson Welles was the Oscar Wilde of cinema. Same initials. Yeah, I think their sexual orientation may have been a little bit different. And Ramsar, if you watch The Other Side of the Wind, you're going to see why Orson Welles was so infatuated with Oya Kodar, his muse in his later years. Spectacular lady. The other thing too is I went to the last Cinemaniacs session. Cinemaniacs is a film appreciation group that meets roughly once a month during the year at the Astor Cinema, and they do a talk and a movie showing. Nice group of people, really kind of our kind of people. And so on Saturday, I went to the Astor and we saw Frankenhooker, Frank Henenlotter's Frankenhooker on the big screen. And it was great. You know, we had to talk about it first and how it's actually, in a weird, messed up way, a feminist movie. And we watched Frankenhooker, which I've got on Blu-ray, and I like it. That's my kind of jam when it comes to transgressive 1980s cinema. And so we saw Frankenhooker, and then we had the Christmas party for the Cinemaniacs in the coffee shop next to, this attached to the Astor. And I bought raffle tickets. I didn't win anything in the raffle, so I was a little bit disappointed, a little bit bummed. But then we had the Kris Kringle. And the way they did it was everybody put their presents on a table. And then we drew tickets out of a bowl. And the person with the lowest number got to pick first, all the way through to 19 people. Ramsar, thank you. $4.99. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Ramsar gets the fart gun. How's it going? Ooh. Thank you, Ramsar. So we get the Kris Kringle, and I pick out number one. So I get the first pick of all the presents sitting on the table. And I said to everybody, I said, do I get greedy with this, or do I try to be a little bit reasonable and not pick the biggest present? And they said, you got number one, pick what you like. So I picked the biggest present that was there. And I got some cookies. I also got Nightmare Before Christmas toy set, and I got a bottle of Prosecco. So I did pretty well out of the Kris Kringle. And the bottle of Prosecco I'm saving for my New Year's Eve live stream, which I'll do at 11 p.m., 31st of December, our time, the way I have the last 3 years. And I'm going to be hitting the Prosecco. Hi, Doug. He says, hey, Terry, Sally, and fellow movie lovers. Sally's not here. She's sleeping. But everybody else is here. And Luna is on the roof of the house next door. So, so I did well out of the Kris Kringle, but I didn't win any of the really cool things they had at the raffle. And among the things of the raffle was a really nice Blu-ray edition of Lady from Shanghai, the Orson Welles movie. There was a whole bunch of other stuff, but Lady from Shanghai was the one I really wanted, and I didn't win it. But still, really great group of people. They did announce some of the slate for next year's Cinemaniacs. And what they're showing live at the cinema are The Lost Boys, the Christopher Lee Dracula movie, RoboCop 1 and 2. They're doing that as a double feature. So there's going to be a whole bunch of really cool cinema for everybody to watch and enjoy next year. And the Cinemaniacs people are just so dedicated. They put a lot of work into putting together their slate of movies. And the people who give the talks are sometimes academics, sometimes movie writers, but in general, contextualizing these movies, even though I'm familiar with them, is a really rich and immersive experience. Going to the cinema, getting a really cool talk with AV, and then watching the movie. It's just a buzz. Doug says, I'm looking forward to your New Year's Eve stream. Pretty sure it'll be my fourth. Yep, Doug. It's going to be there. I will put it, I'll put up the thing telling people where it is on the channel just after Christmas. And by the way, I'm getting a few people who are in for the raffle as well, the people who are Patreon supporters, and also excuse me, Sinuses, hate it. Patreon people and channel members. I'm getting a list of people who want to be in the raffle for those 24 movies I announced in the last video I did. And so it's looking pretty good. Simcath56, howdy from Tucson, Arizona. Cool, how's the weather in Tucson? Here, it's got up to 15 degrees. It's going to be like 23, 24 here today. Or is it? Hang on. Alexa, what's the weather today?
Currently, in Hoppers Crossing, it's 15 degrees Celsius with cloudy skies. Today, you can expect showers with a high of 27 degrees.
It's going to get to 27 with showers. So,
there's a very high risk from UV exposure.
Alexa, stop. Alexa gets a bit mouthy at times. Yes, the 27 today, which is pretty good. Dick says there was a great 2-part episode of BBC Two's documentary series Arena from the 80s where Wells sat down with Alan Yentop talking about his career in the films in Las Vegas. It may be available on YouTube. Cool. I love Orson Welles. The best Orson Welles story I know is Orson Welles was in the south of France and he's trying to impress a woman. This would have been like 1950s. And he was doing a magic trick with cards because Wells was a pretty adept amateur magician. And there was a pick a card kind of thing. So I guess this beautiful young woman to pick a card. And she picks a card and he smiles and says to her, look up. And there's a plane skywriting the card in the sky above the south of France. Wells timed it perfectly and arranged it well. And her card was written in the sky above her. I love that story. Friday says, ask Alexa, what's your name? Alexa, what is your name?
Good day, I'm Alexa and I'm wired for fun, got fiction and predictions, and I'm killer with a pun. I'm the speaker.
Alexa, stop. Alexa's rapping. Shit. And doing it badly too. See, that's a peril of AI. Is that? Thanks, Friday. Thanks for that shit in my brain. Hey, Alexa, make a fart sound.
Welcome to Fart Noise.
Yeah, got Alexa doing the fast now. Alexa, stop. Okay, let's not go too far down that rabbit hole.
Say, Alexa, open Fart Noise. Keep the laughter going all day long.
Alexa, stop. Alexa's taking over the friggin' live stream. Yeah, don't do that to me again, Friday, please. 19 degrees centigrade and cold to us, says Simcath. Yeah, that's the thing. It always seems weird. I mean, yeah, I've got this cognitive dissonance about it. But the idea of having a cold holiday season sounds really shit to me. It sounds wrong and feels wrong. If you want to find a song that typifies Australian Christmases more no, Dealey, we're not going to do that. If you want a song that typifies Australian Christmases and the Australian attitude to Christmas, and grab a pen and paper, write down White Wine in the Sun, because White Wine in the Sun is a fantastic song written by Tim Minchin about his attitude to the holiday season and pretty much mine. You should check that one out, but not now. Ramsay said, my DVD copy of Touch of Evil from 2002 is restored vision, 1 hour 31 minutes. Digital copies in all 1 hour and 35 minutes. Bummer. Yeah, that would, again, this is the wonderful thing about physical media. It's locked in. It's there. And yeah, and Deb says White Wine in the Sun is beautiful. It is. Yeah, digital, physical copies they can't mess with. Digital copies they can mess with. Doug says, I know everyone thinks Citizen Kane regarding Wells, but for me it's War of the Worlds and the effect it had on Americans that thought it was real. Vaguely remember a TV movie with Vic Morrow. Yeah, it had David Shannard playing Orson Welles really well too. That I think it's The Night That Terrified America or something like that. Nice little TV movie, that one. One of the reasons why it's good that we're talking about digital versus physical media is, and I've dropped my remote. I've got to go pick it up because otherwise I'll step on it. There we go. Disney Plus and Disney are re-releasing the original Star Wars in the original edition before George Lucas finger painted all over it. And apparently that's a big thing, and people are going to be able to see the original unfucked with Star Wars on the big screen. You know I'm not a Star Wars fan. Again, it's that milking the cash cow until it turns into beef jerky and complaining because nobody's buying the bare bones of whatever you've got. And so they're doing that again. And yeah, it's going to make a lot of money. And yeah, people are going to watch it again. I'd rather people invest the money in new science fiction and new things that are happening. And to be honest, a lot of the best science fiction is coming out on platforms like Apple TV. Things like Pluribus is an amazing science fiction movie in the form of a whole bunch of different streaming episodes. It is an incredible work of genre. And it's not going to make anywhere near the money, of course, that re-releasing the Star Wars movies in the original unfucked with version is going to, but I really think we should appreciate more how the best of science fiction is now on streaming rather than in cinemas. Friday says, a while back I was trying to check the device name on my Alexa device. I have 3. So I asked the obvious question. Imagine my horror on hearing that rap. Yeah, it is horror. Dick says, The Night That Panicked America, the DVD can be a bit pricey. That's the one with Paul Shenar and Vic Morrow in it. Yeah. And listening to the original broadcast was fantastic. And The Night That Panicked America shows how they did some of the special effects. The special sound effects of the Martian spaceship, the lid of it unscrewing so that the tripods can come out, was done by getting a large jar and taking the lid off the jar in a toilet bowl so you got the echo. And they had the mics in a toilet bowl so that they could get the right echoey sound they needed for the unscrewing of the opening of the Martian spaceships. Amazing stuff like that. Doug says, I think Star Wars is overrated. It was a fun yet derivative movie that somehow hit a nerve. Friday says, finally got around to seeing Tron Ares. It felt very flat. Yeah, I'm going to watch it digital. But I got no expectations of a movie with Jared Leto in it, who is kind of entertaining for one very odd reason, in that his acting choices in any role he does, after he did the Oscar-winning one in the Dallas Buyers Club, is uniformly wrong. It's just his acting choices in every movie are the worst possible ones. And that's kind of amusing to watch, going, yeah, I can see where he went wrong here, and I'm amazed that he can't. So Jared Leto is one of those actors you watch for car crash reasons. Don't know if his career is going to thrive at all in the future because he's had so many movies that could have been hits that he just pooed on by his acting choices. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see. Okay, let's see. 7:49 now. Let's start the Ask Me Anything. Ask me anything. I will tell you. I'll be as honest as I can, given that I'm a human being and therefore a flawed vessel. Ask me anything, and we'll go with that. Let's see whether I can do that in here. And here's the question. There we go. Start the Q&A. I'm not sure what happens with this. There we go. If I do that, I can... Hang on. Yeah, that didn't work because it blocked the chat. Peter, I'm off to see a Hitchcock double feature at the Palace in Adelaide tonight. Spellbound and Notorious with a pub dinner proceeding. That sounds like a good night. I've actually watched a couple of Hitchcock films in the last week, but I'm going to talk about those in my next video because there's some interesting aspects to both of them, and they're not the obvious ones. Friday says Jared Leto is a cult leader. I still don't understand why anyone gives him roles. He won an Oscar. That's the reason why. Apart from that, he has zero riz to me. Doug says, I just saw Jay Kelly with George Clooney, quite enjoyed it. Adam Sandler, who I'm not a fan of, was very good. Yeah, I'm hearing mixed things about Jay Kelly. I know it's on Netflix now. I probably will watch it because I kind of like Clooney, apart from his Nespresso ads. But I kind of like Clooney. And I'll give it a go because I think his acting choices are interesting. And he's harking back to being an old school movie star, like a Gary Cooper, Cary Grant movie star. And I find that kind of interesting. Dick says, cool, looking forward to that video. Be interesting to see what Hitch films they will be. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil them for you. But they're two kind of unusual Hitchcock films. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit in that video that I'm going to be making this afternoon if my voice holds out. Because the 2-hour live stream does mess with your tonsils just a little bit. Slice of Film says, can't believe you've never seen The Howling 3. I've seen The Howling 3. What made you think I haven't seen it? Friday says, is Tron Legacy a rare example of a sequel that's better than the original? Legacy is not a great movie, but Tron is low bar. I've seen a lot of stuff about Tron Legacy and Tron Ares talked about online. And the consensus, with which I agree, is that nobody asked for sequels to Tron. Tron was of its time. People were starting to get home computers. And like the idea of a computer and the idea of online, well, not even online, but the idea of RAM and ROM and hard drives and visuals on a screen that you can control was new at that time. And so Disney made a fairly prosaic movie about it. And then Tron Legacy came in because there's not an IP that's not inevitably going to get a sequel. And then Tron Ares. Nobody asked for the sequels. There's not much cultural traction to the Tron series. The same with Avatar. Everybody watches them once. Avatar movie comes out, it makes all the money for about a month. And then everybody goes, okay, yeah, Blue Smurfs, blah, blah, blah. So the cultural impact of Tron is like the cultural impact of Avatar. And every bus I see these days, right at the moment, has an ad for Avatar Fire and Ash. But I don't hear anybody going, oh, I'm really looking forward to that movie. I don't see that kind of everyday word of mouth cultural traction to the new Avatar movie. What do I think of The Wrong Man, the 1957 Hitchcock movie, says For Sale? Oh, yeah, I like it. And Kermit's Ghosts here. Hi, Alan. People should check out Kermit's Ghosts channel. And they should also check out Dig Power's channel. Both of them on the south coast of England. Both of them are really good creators and know their stuff. And Kermit's Ghost says, is there an actor and actress you like to the point we watch something they're in no matter what? Yeah, there are a bunch of them. I watch anything with Susan Terrell in it because she was just madly good at what she did. Bogart, of course, and Ava Gardner. I'll watch any movie with Ava Gardner in it because Ava Gardner, when she was young, there was nobody hotter on the screen than Ava Gardner. She was muy caliente. I mean, really. Who else? Let me think. There's tons of awesome Wells. I like Wells on the screen. I'll watch anything he made and anything he's in for that reason. Modern times, who do I really like? Got to think for Julianne Moore. I really like Julianne Moore, and she's kind of interesting as well. Just so many to pick from. Dick says, thank you for the mention and the kind comments. Yeah, absolutely. Deb says, my partner came in to see what I was up to and said, say hi from Jeff. He grew up with Star Wars and has a soft spot for him. Alan and Dick, you guys deserve it. I mean, anybody who puts anything up on YouTube is a hostage to fate. It really is something where you're going out on a limb. And yeah, there are going to be dickheads who attack you, and there are going to be an incredible learning curve for all of us in doing this kind of stuff. And a continuing learning curve. The learning curve doesn't get smaller. It just gets more nuanced. And so anybody who puts up a channel on YouTube and has a go at it and kind of learns from what they do and tries to make each and every video a little bit better has my endless respect. It takes guts to do that. Also, it takes a little bit of money. You got to buy the equipment for it. But it takes guts to do that. And the reward, of course, is that you build a community. And that's what I love about this channel. I love about other people's channel, is building a community of people, like-minded people across this clay and granite planet who you can hang with. And particularly during the pandemic and during the lockdowns, that meant a lot to a lot of people, and people are still engaged with that. D. says, are there directors you follow like a football team through the highs and lows and even when they're bad? I like Catherine Bigelow's stuff. I think she does really well. I like Shane Black as well, even though his latest movie was forgettable as hell and had Marky Mark in it. I like Shane Black as a director. Let's see who else. I like seeing what new directors are doing as well. There are a whole bunch of people like Nia DaCosta. I really appreciate her work, even though she did the Marvels. New voices from different cultural backgrounds. I'm always there for that. I really learn. I'm here to learn as much as I'm here to be entertained. And movies that teach me as much as they make me learn. I mean, things like One Battle After Another. The way the car chase sequence is done in that. It's one of those movies you sit down and watch it, and it reminds you why you love movies. In the same way that the juke joint sequence in Sinners did, blew me away because it was audacious and bold and unashamedly full forward on the magic realism of that story. I just love cinema, and I think the reward for loving cinema is occasionally you get something that reminds you of why you love it, and it takes you back to your early childhood when you first went to the movies, and it was a magical place and a magical thing and a magical realm. There are still movies out there, if you're willing to step outside your comfort zone sometimes and just go with movies you might not otherwise watch, and they reward you enormously. And that's one of the things that worries me about this Netflix takeover of Warner Brothers. Are we still going to get the magic? Are we still going to get the wonder that we have when something incredibly, extraordinarily special comes to the screen? And is Netflix going to help destroy cinema as opposed to streaming at home? I mean, going to the Cinemaniac sessions as I did on Saturday and hanging out with people beforehand, and Julian and John and all of the other people there, there's a community vibe that you don't just get from streaming. And I think we've got to retain that and treasure it and defend it. Dick's going to check out Kermit's Ghost later. Good. Doug says, I'll watch anything with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn and any spy movie. Yeah, I like spy movies too. Ramsar says, you go to see Avatar movies for the audiovisual feast and not for the story and acting. What's the definition of a flop for an Avatar movie? Avatar 3 won't gross like the first two, and by quite a margin, quite probably. Name 3 characters from an Avatar movie off the top of your head, not the actors, but name 3 characters from an Avatar movie. That's why it doesn't rate. It doesn't have any cultural traction. Peter says The Killers is a must-see for a drop-dead gorgeous Ava Gardner. Yeah, the best one is One Touch of Venus. Ava Gardner in One Touch of Venus is, incredible. Deb says, I can't stop thinking about One Battle, Sinners, and Begonia. I think they're my 3 top picks for the year. Haven't seen Begonia yet. I do have a copy of it on digital, but I haven't watched it yet. Doug says, no need to answer, but I hope you guys are okay after your recent loss. Yeah, we're getting through it. The family's getting through it. Funeral's tomorrow, and the healing starts then. I'm going to be one of the pallbearers for Steph's coffin, which is a great honour. I do have to go into a Catholic church, though, and I'm not too keen on that. It's like Tim Minchin says in White Wine in the Sun. I get freaked out by churches. I kind of do as well. Rams, I said, Catherine Bigelow's House of Dynamite on Netflix is way subpar. Yeah, I think I like Catherine Bigelow, and I like the way she ramps up tension. But there's a boldness that a House of Dynamite needed. Just that little extra boldness, which in some way was lacking. I mean, I appreciated the movie and I kind of enjoyed it. But I like the structure of it too, from the 3 different viewpoints. But there's something there that's not quite right. D. Lee says, if you like Begonia, see South Korean film Save the Green Planet, on which it's based. I'm going to be watching both of them back to back, I think. Ramzar says, Critics' Choice Awards nominations were announced on Friday, with Sinners leading the way, with 17 nominations, followed by One Battle After Another with 14. Yeah, absolutely. Both of those movies I really appreciated. For Sale 100 says, House of Dynamite has a chilling ending. It does. But there's something structurally that doesn't quite hit for me. I'm not sure what. Dennis is here. Hi, Terry, Pluribus, Spartacus, Home of Asher, and Troll 2. All very good. Pluribus just keeps to amaze, and the gears just shifted in him. Yeah, don't do any spoilers. I haven't seen the latest episode. I'm going to watch that probably after the live stream. But I'm really looking forward to continuing the story of Pluribus, because that is incredible. Time for another hit of the double strength coffee. Yep. You really got to see Pluribus if you haven't. And I won't do any spoilers on it because you've got to go on the trip. Ramzar says, best picture in the Critics' Choice Awards, Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet. I'm starting to hear some good things about Hamnet. Jay Kelly, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, Sentimental Value, Sinners, Train Dreams, Wicked for Good. I've seen Wicked for Good, and I enjoyed it more than I thought it would. And if people don't think that that movie is about 2 women who are passionately in love with each other, you're not watching the same movie I did. But yeah, I will be talking about the movies I watched recently. I will be talking about Wicked for Good when I do that, because I went there for Middle-Aged Geek Girl's birthday on the 21st, because it was her choice, and I hadn't seen the first one. Still haven't seen all of the first one, but I enjoyed the second one. Peter says, Alex Proyas is my lamented modern director who sadly lost his way, The Crow, Dark City, and Knowing. Yeah, Alex Proyas is a weird guy, because I was Facebook friends with Alex Proyas. And when his last movie died in the bum, I mentioned, he put up a post about it. And I said, it's probably not good to argue with critics online, because it never works well for the creative person. I've phrased it very carefully and respectfully. I did all the right things there. And he blocked me on Facebook because I wasn't fanboy. I think I understand that he's an angry man, But I wish goodwill to him, and I'll watch his movies, but he has lost his way. And I think part of it is that he gets angry with things. And he not only feeds the trolls, but if somebody's got a legitimate critique of his movies, which is my job as much as anything, is when I watch a movie to talk about it honestly from my point of view. He really has a problem with that. D. Lee says, watch out for a Japanese film called Exit 8. It may make you think twice before going into a subway. I've heard things about Exit 8. Where's my pen? I've got a pen here. I'm going to write down Exit 8. Yeah. In fact, I've got a lot of pens here. I got my Art the Clown pen that Sal made me. So I'm going to write down Exit 8. Hey, Luna. Luna's back in the house, which means she's climbed off the roof next door. I've left the door open for her to come in and out because I'm not getting up to let her in and out. Yeah, there's just so much good small cinema around, and I think that's kind of interesting. And that's the thing I'm worried about with this amalgamation of studios into one big colossal megalith, is the people making the decisions, and the guy who's in charge of Netflix doesn't seem to love cinema. He loves making a profit. He loves the game of doing deals. But I've got no indication from anything I've seen in interviews with him that he has a passionate love of cinema the way you and me and billions of other people do. Peter says, Hollywood went to his head and made Proyas a prima donna. Possibly. I'm not going to analyze the guy that much, but I think he's down in the weeds a bit too much. Deb says, Netflix takeover and Disney's acquisition in recent years are really similar to the scenario back in the 30s when the three big studios owned production, distribution, and the cinemas. Yeah, it's all about the delivery system. Doug says, my daughter and I have a weird but joyous Christmas tradition of watching bad Hallmark Christmas movies, which all basically have the same plot, usually set in small towns and involve saving Christmas. Yeah, it's the Hallmark movies are weird. I mean, this year I'm going to be watching Shane Black Christmas movie. I'm going to be watching Die Hard. I'm going to be watching Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I even might watch The Nice Guys. I think that's a Christmas movie as well. And Iron Man 3. So I'll probably do those ones. And I might watch a very Harold and Kumar Christmas, which I kind of like as a vulgar pleasure. Dick says, cuddles to both of the cats. Thank you, Dick. Deb was approved to do my master's dissertation on the subject, but got very ill. That will be about the studio productions and the acquisitions. Yeah. I don't know where cinema's going to go in the future. I mean, everybody's got an opinion on that, and everybody thinks they know. But based on my long history of being on this planet, I don't know whether or not we can predict with any accuracy what's going to happen. I think it's a downward slope, but I also think that there are going to be new outliers that come into play. I mean, things like Umbrella Entertainment is starting to get into movie production as a producer, and there are a couple of other smaller players like A24 and people like that, which I know is just a distribution company. But when things get chaotic and when things look darkest for anything, look for the outliers, because that's where the future is. The future doesn't come from the center of things. It comes from the edges of things. The computer revolution was two geeks in a car garage, like a house garage in Cupertino, California, made the Apple II computer and the Apple I computer. That's where change comes, and that's where the future comes from. It ain't from the center of things, it's from the edges. And we should remind ourselves of that when we get pessimistic about the future of storytelling. Doug says, yes, nightclubs, Yes, nice guys. Briefly feature Christmas Harold and Kumar. It's fun. My son introduced me to them. Yeah. A useful ghost might get some sort of distribution. A transgressive tie film about a haunted vacuum cleaner. Cool. Like I said, small things from the edge will be the future. Luna, she's meowing for no good reason. She's being fed. She's got access to the outside world. I think she just wants somebody's attention. Ramsar says, I'll binge Pluribus closer to the season finale on December 26th. Looking forward to it. Yeah, try to avoid spoilers on it, Ramsar, and just go for the journey. I'm not going to do any spoilers on it. I've set out the premise. I've talked about it on the channel before. But the premise is in the trailer. And I think it's a mind-blowingly good one. Incredibly well enacted. Deb says, I think it's great that the smaller concerns like Umbrella and A24 are getting involved in production. And Deb says, I want to see a useful ghost. Yeah, which is basically a Roomba. A haunted vacuum cleaner is a Roomba. Tall trees from little acorns grow, says For Sale 100. Yeah. Historically, that's where innovation comes from. It comes from the edges. And it's always fun to watch the edges and go, hey, this A24 studio is doing interesting things. Or Damien Leone is doing interesting things with Art the Clown in the Terrifier movies, which is taken in a lot of money and definitely came from the edge. Special effects guy who wanted to tell a story. That's where the cool stuff is. And that's where the future is. And whether it is something as edgy as the Terrifier movies, or whether it's an even slightly more mainstream thing that nobody had thought of before, keep watching the edges. Boomer Doug says, the night before is an overlooked Christmas gem with Seth Rogen and an office Christmas party is fun. Cool. The other thing I'll be watching, and I've got to thank Dick and Carol for this, is I'm going to be watching the Morecambe and Wise Christmas specials from the 1970s. Because Dick and Carol sent me a box set of all of the Eric and Ernie Christmas specials. We've had people like Vanessa Redgrave, Glenda Jackson, Andre Previn, a whole bunch of different quality actors of the time doing comedy with Morecambe and Wise. They're just fantastic, and Eric and Ernie play off each other so well. It's just a joy to rewatch that stuff. Ramsar says, this year my Christmas movies are 3 Scrooge movies, A Christmas Carol from 51 with Alistair Sim, great. Scrooge from 1970 with Albert Finney, which is a musical, and Scrooged with Bill Murray. Good idea. Why have I got a hair in my mouth? And it's not what you think. Have I seen Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol for Sale 100? I probably did sometime in the last century. Loved Jim Backus as an actor, and I even loved him in Rebel Without a Cause, where he played James Dean's father, and people forget that Jim Backus was a character actor before he was ever a comic actor, and he is very good in that small role. Doug says, Morecambe Wise, now you're talking. Great choices. That box set is so joyous. It is. Eric and Ernie always deliver. Unfortunately, their movies were shit because they and their people didn't have control of the 3 movies they made. And they're a bit sad for that reason, but the TV stuff was joyously wonderful. Ferrani says, just a review on YouTube saying The Magic Christian was a terrible movie. I love it. What are my thoughts on it? Any movie where Yul Brynner is in drag is a movie I'm going to enjoy. It's got Christopher Lee in it. Yes, it does have Ringo Starr as well, and of course Peter Sellers, but Yul Brynner in drag singing Mad About the Boy is chef's kiss fucking wonderful. I like the Magic Christian for that. The fact that it went there, and the fact that Yul Brynner went there. This time he's not dealing in lead. It's just such fun, that movie. And I kind of like that subgenre of 1960s films that are anarchic comedies. I mean, the Monkeys movie Head is in that, where there's just random shit happening all the time. And even movies like George Axelrod's Lord Love a Duck have that 1960s anything is possible anarchy about them, which I really appreciate. I really dig that stuff. I think it's fantastically good fun. And why am I off center? There we go. That's better. I mean, I know I'm the left wing, but I don't want to be left wing on the screen. Yeah. So, favorite really obscure 1960s movies. For me, I've been watching these on YouTube. Had them for some reason with ads. I've been watching the Beach Party movies, and they're a lot of fun, and they get so many cool actors in them. Like, I mean, first time Stevie Wonder was ever on the screen was in a Beach Party movie, and Buster Keaton's in them, and Vincent Price is in them, and Peter Lorre's in them. And who doesn't love Eric Von Zipper? Harvey Lembeck as Eric Von Zipper, taking the piss out of Marlon Brando in The Wild One. The Beach Party movies are kind of innocent fun, but they're still fun. Doug says it still makes me smile to see the Eric and Ernie comedy sketches where they innocently share a bed. Didn't Jack Nicholson direct Head? No, Bob Rafelson directed it. Jack Nicholson co-wrote it with Bob Rafelson. And Jack Nicholson has a cameo in Head, where he walks in and talks to Rafelson on screen. When I first saw Head in the late 1960s at a Saturday matinee, it blew me away. The circular timeline of Head just blew me away at the time, and all the weirdness and wonderfulness of it. And the fact that they actually put in that iconic scene from the documentary footage of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam just did my head in. It was confronting as hell. Friday says, Dr. Goldfoot movies are an acquired taste with actors from the Beach Party movies. Yeah, I think the Dr. Goldfoot movies are a bit less than the Beach Party movies. But I was watching the original Beach Party movie, and I thought, Dorothy Lamote is kind of hot in that movie. Everybody else is kind of looking at Annette Funicello and all the Beach Bunnies. But I'm looking at Dorothy Malone and thinking, yeah. Peter says, love the beach movies. Harvey Lembeck, totally out of sight. Yeah. I did my last Spotify playlist for the Patreon people and the channel members. And I included 2 Beach Party songs, including one sung by Harvey Lembeck in that playlist, along with all the Christmas stuff. So that's a lot of fun to do. Doug says, when I first saw Head, I was so disappointed. Now I think it's probably the best thing the Monkeys ever did. It is, and Mickey Dolenz will say so, being the surviving monkey, unfortunately. But yeah, I really like it. And the soundtrack's great. Things like Can You Dig It and Circle Sky and all that kind of stuff. And the Dolphins and the Porpoise song, sorry. Just a really good bunch of needle drops in that. And the thing is, the Monkeys were mocked by the media at the time in the press. They really had a go at them. But they were hanging out with the Beatles in London. I mean, Davey, Mick, Mike, and Mickey. Davey, Peter, Mike, and Mickey hung out with the Beatles, and they were respected as musicians by the Beatles, and they were, playing sitar music with John Lennon. So they are right, and I love the fact that one of their support acts on their tour was Jimi Hendrix, and the Monkeys fans just didn't dig Hendrix at all. Friday says, I'm going to show Head to my friends. I need to give them a trigger warning about real footage. Absolutely adore Head, and it's so clever, brilliant deconstruction of the idea of fame. It is. Frank Zappa's in it with a kind of Brahma bull as well. Doug says the Monkeys audition tapes are really interesting. Yeah, because the characters of the actors come out in those audition tapes, and they really are great. For Sailor 100 says, Ride the Wild Surf with Barbara Eden was a good beach party movie. Yeah, they're all fun to watch. The sexual politics is sometimes a bit iffy, but yeah, they are, and they are on YouTube. If you type in the title of a beach party movie, chances are you can watch it on YouTube with ads, but still, it's accessible. And that's the last of the double strength coffee. Deb says, I loved Head. What an ambiguous thing to say. We'll move on from that. Yeah, just those, they were kind of low-key movies in the 60s, but appreciating them now with a slight tongue-in-cheek, I think is great fun. Stevie Wonder was, I believe, in one of them, which was a ski party movie. They also had James Brown doing some really great stuff in it. So the musicians they had doing things, and Dick Dale and people like that, were really great. And I think at least one of the Beach Boys was in a beach party movie. Just again, it's an historical thing where you go, hey, that's what Stevie Wonder was like when he was young. And hey, that was what the whole James Brown thing was about. Franny says, what are your thoughts on 200 Motels that has Zappa, but for the most part, he's played by Ringo Starr? Haven't seen it for a very long time, Franny, to be honest. I don't remember a lot about it. But it might be worth checking out again, so I'm going to write that down as well. With my Art the Clown pen. There, done. Should check it out again. Yeah, there have been some more announcements by Umbrella and Imprint as well on what they're putting out soon. And they're going to be doing things like I Spit on Your Grave, which is a movie that really messed me up in the 70s. And they're also doing the third one of those Charles Band box sets, which has trances in it. That's going to be fun to review because I've got trances on 4K already. But I really like the first two trances movies. After that, I don't like them. But there's a lot of really good cult stuff coming out, including an animated movie, a new animated movie called Lesbian Space Princess, which I'm looking forward to seeing. Peter says, how to Stuff a Wild Bikini, possibly the most innuendo film movie title ever? Yeah, and there's also The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini. Deb says, I never got into the beach party movies. Godzilla kaiju movies are more my thing. Yeah, I can respect that. If you want to, Deb, go back into my playlist of 24-hour movie marathons, and you can see me watching 24 hours of Godzilla movies, which I did a few years ago. Crazy stuff. Simcath56 says 200 Motels is a time capsule. Good. Forza 100 says, I Spitting on a Grave was filmed in Connecticut. Cool. Adam Schofield 6398 says, is Trances a Christmas movie? Yeah, it is. Because Santa turns into a Trances zombie. So it is. Boomer Doug says, Frankie Avalon has a YouTube podcast at 85. He's still looking great. Yeah, for 85, he's looking fantastic. I don't know whether it's formaldehyde, but he's still there and he's still got his marbles. But yeah, Trances is fun. I might watch Trances, even though the box set won't come out before Christmas. I might drag out my 4K of Trances and just enjoy that again, because Tim Thomerson is fantastic. I love Tim Thomerson playing Jack Death and also playing Brick Bardo and Dollman. Just had this great thing. And he's also great in Zone Troopers, a World War II movie where they meet a bunch of aliens. That one should get a box set release at some stage. Captain Laser's here too. Michael Nesmith produced movies that are interesting, Time Rodder and Repo Man. Yeah, he did. He went in his own way for a while and then moved back into doing Monkeys concerts and stuff. He did a thing called Elephant Parts as well, which is kind of weird and wonderful. Wouldn't it be great if Umbrella put out a box set of beach party movies? I could really appreciate that. Dick says, really love your 24-hour movie marathons, especially the ones you did in the spinning wheel. And that was about the time we discovered your channel. Yeah, we'll do another 24-hour, but given health issues and stuff, I've got to be careful doing really long stuff. So I'll do what I did with that one, Dick, and break it into 2 12-hour sections. But I'm in the mood for doing it again sometime in the new year. Deb says, Repo Man was excellent. Yeah, and Umbrella put out a fantastic box set of Repo Man. Friday says, I still love Transformers 3 for Andrew Robinson. Yeah, I think after 3, they fell off a cliff. But the first 2 I really like. Deb says, I have to check out the movie marathon. Yeah, I did a few of them. And it's really great because at the end of them, the reason I broke it up into 2 12-hour sections at one stage is I put really good, I picked them out at random. Like I had a box of movies and picked out the movies at random, which order I was going to watch them in. And toward the end, there were some really good films that came up. And I was so brain-whacked that I couldn't appreciate the really good films I was watching as much as I normally would. And that's a bit of a bummer. So doing 2 12-hour sessions as a 24-hour marathon, a day or two apart, I think that works better for me at this stage of things. Rams, I said, my last doubleheader in theatres was Wicked for Good and Sisu Road to Revenge. Both very good and entertaining. Sisu was an uber violent. Wicked has grossed 440 million, while Sisu only 8.5. I want to see Road to Revenge because I've got the first Sisu movie on DVD. It only got a DVD release here in Australia. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Dick says, apart from Keith Lemon, the movie, yeah, I'm not watching Keith Lemon, the movie again. Keith Lemon, the movie, is the movie I hate most in the world, apart from Triumph of the Will and maybe Birth of a Nation. Doug says, do I remember Tim Thomason in a science fiction comedy called Quark? Yep. Richard Benjamin starred in, I'm pretty sure, Buck Henry wrote. Yeah, Quark was fun. D-Lee says, Repo Man is fun. The best film about a more realistic Repo Man is Dale Zallen's Skip Tracer from 78, a forgotten Canadian film. Cool, that might be worth checking out. Yeah, Tim Thomason did play a trans character in Quark. Forso 100 said, Berlin Alexander Platz was very, very long movie. Ever seen it? No. But if it comes across my plate, I will indulge. Let me just bring something up here. So excuse me for one moment, people. I won't actually go into what I've been watching lately, but at the moment I've watched 360 movies this year. So I'm on track to do my one movie a day for the year. And all I've got to do is watch 6 more movies before the end of the month. And I'm sure I will see more than that. Captain Laser says, I've only seen Trances and Trances 2. What's so lousy about the rest? They're very derivative and they don't bring anything new to the plate very much. First 2, nail it. Dodge Morgan says, sorry, Terry, forgot you were been watching F1 last race and World Championship 1. Here, now, what were we talking about? You need to look at the chat for that. We've been talking about everything. But thanks for joining us. Deb says to D. Lee, I'll have a look out for that one, which is the Berlin Alexander Platz. No, it isn't. It's the Skip Tracer from 1978. There are a lot of forgotten Canadian films, particularly exploitation films. I mean, Australia's got exploitation films, and I think there's Canuck exploitation for the Canadian ones. But yeah, there are always things that fall beneath the radar. Dick says, anything with Andre Rieu. Yeah, I'm not watching any more Andre Rieu concert things. They freak me out in a weird way, even though I like some of the tunes. And the weird thing is, if you go through any of the op shops, thrift stores here, there are like stacks of Andre Rieu videos all over the place. In fact, I saw one op shop where there's like this much Andre Rieu on the shelf. It's guaranteed you go into any op shop in Australia and somewhere there's an Andre Rieu DVD. I don't know whether somebody's putting them in there deliberately or whether it's just purely coincidental, but they are there. D. Lee says Skip Tracer is on YouTube. Cool. Doug says, thanks for your recommendation. I'm really enjoying Tubi. Lots of hidden gems, good and bad. There are. Tubi's a rabbit hole. You go down there and go, okay, yeah, I remember that movie from way back then. And wasn't this movie screwed up? You can kind of alternately be delighted and horrified by the things you've already watched and finding new stuff as well. When I do my video about the stuff I've been watching recently, there's a couple of kind of minefield movies where you think a movie is going to be one thing, but it turns out to be something really darker and horrible. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but you'll see what I mean when you see that video. Dodge Morgan says, got recent recommendation from a pal. I'm trying to think what a Cemetery Man is. Just let me Google it. By the way, I'm not using Google these days. I'm using a thing called Start Page, which doesn't give you data to Google. Yeah, it's also known as Delamorte Delamore. I've seen it, Rupert Everett and Falchi. A bit of fun. I'm not going to do any spoilers on it, but you might want to check that out. It is fun. Ramzar says, my doubleheader this coming Tuesday will be Hamnet, followed by Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair, from 9:30 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. The latter is 4 hours, 41 minutes with a 15-minute intermission. I will see that at some stage, but I'm not sure when. Dick says the same thing's happening there. Yep, went into one of the op shops the other day, and it looked like about 20 Andre Rieu DVDs. Yeah, it's amazing how much Andre Rieu there's out there. You can buy them up really cheaply and make a solar reflector and generate your own power with an Andre Rieu collection. Yeah, there's a ton of them there. They should actually do a video one day of how many Andre Rieu DVDs can I find looking in all my local op shops. That might be fun. I'm just going to write down Andre Rieu. I won't buy the McCoils, but it might be a little bit of a kind of fun side hustle kind of video to do. And there again is the Art the Clown pen. Yeah, we get a lot of what we get a lot of is Big Bang Theory, Andre Rieu, Baz Luhrmann movies, particularly Australia. There's a ton of those sitting in op shops. Never going to get them, but they're there. What else do we get? Lots of Judd Apatow comedies, for some reason. They're the ones we tend to most get here in our thrift stores, op shops. Adam says, well, just in a watch party, we watched Body of Evidence starring Madonna. You poor bastards. D. says, funny Berlin Alexander Platz got mentioned as that's where I spent part of today. Cool. Dodge Morgan says, have you discussed Netflix buying and trying to buy Warner Brothers? Yeah, we have. It's earlier in the live stream. Captain Laser says, Cronenberg's one of my favourite Canadian directors. What's your favourite film of his? Scanners and Videodrome for me. I kind of like Scanners because I like the way Patrick McGowan says Scanners. Dick says, charity shop bingo. You make a card with a group of the most seen things you see in a charity shop and try to cross off a full card. That might work. Doug says, I used to volunteer in an op shop, had first dibs on so many great DVDs. That's not playing fair, Doug. I've got a friend who works at a Savers in a really big Savers op shop over in the northern suburbs. Our friend Alicia. And I found a couple of good things when I was there. But I'm really going to hit the Latrobe Valley near Maui where my sister-in-law lives and my niece, Cal. Our sister-in-law, now niece, sorry. And I'm going to really hit all of those op shops because I went to the one in Yarragon and the Blu-rays were $1 each. Blu-rays. So I'm going to keep my eyes on that place. Ramsar says, better 2025 movie releases on Netflix. Frankenstein, K-pop Demon Hunters. I want to watch that. I haven't watched it yet. Train Dreams, Nouvelle Vague. I want to see that too. Jay Kelly, Left-Handed Girl, Nonnas, Son of a Thousand Men, and Wake Up Dead Man. Wake Up Dead Man, I recommend. It's coming out on the 12th on Netflix. Patrick McGowan's character is named Dr. Ruth in Scanners. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. But the way he goes, Scanners is really fun. And of course, the exploding head, you got to love that stuff as well. Don't recommend the Scanners sequels because they're all shit. They're all a cash cow, a cash grab. But yeah, I like Scanners. It's very accessible for Cronenberg. And I also love other things like Dead Ringers with Jean-Pierre Bujold and Jeremy Irons. Dodge Morgan says, saw in news this week that some self-important film body definitely said Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. It's set at Christmas but not a Christmas film. Burks, it is a Christmas movie. It's all about bringing family together. And to do that, he's got to get the Euro trash out of the way first. It is a Christmas movie, and it's worth it. And I will be watching it again on 4K. Ralph says, not to mention Patrick, I've already read that one. D-Lee says, a Baz Luhrmann film with the soundtrack by Andre Rieu would a charity shop gold. I think it would form a black hole and the whole charity shop would collapse into it, were that to happen. I think the choice of music that Baz Luhrmann has in his movies is pretty fucking awful too. The music he did in Moulin Rouge was just so obvious. It was like, what's the obvious choice? And Baz Luhrmann will put it into a movie. I dislike his Moulin Rouge a lot. Visually, it's very sumptuous, but it's not emotionally engaging for me one tiny bit. I like the 1952 one much better, the one that John Huston did with Jose Ferrer. That's got heart. Ramsar says some good international films coming out. The Secret Agent Brazil. I'm going to see that. I'm going to a press preview of that in January. No Other Choice, South Korea. It was just an accident from Iran. Looking forward to them, but probably not in theaters. I'm definitely seeing The Secret Agent at the Cinema Nova. So I've got to do a little bit of a public transport trip to see that. But I got an offer to go to the press preview of The Secret Agent. And I said, yes, I think it's about the 6th of January. I've got to check my notes. But I'm definitely seeing that one. I will review it because they're asking me to see it so I can review it. And that's the obligation I've got being part of the Film Critics Association. Any movie I see in a cinema that I flash my card and get in for nothing, I've got an obligation professionally to review it, which is why I did Wake Up Dead Man, because I saw that in the cinemas and got in on my pass as well. It's really interesting because my friend Julian at Collective Creations has a pass. And he keeps taking it to the cinema and they go, what are you talking about? And they won't give him a free ticket. So I offered to take Julian to the cinema to show him how the pass works. Sometimes you get the people at the ticket sales who look at the pass and don't understand it. But I've learned the buzzwords that you need to give them so that they accept it. You know, it's a media comp, which means a media complimentary ticket. And once you say media comp, they'll either go to their manager who will help them with it, or they'll know what you're talking about. Adam says, sorry, can't get Body of Evidence out of my head. Yeah, a lot of people like Madonna, but I don't know many people who like her as an actress. But yeah, Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie too. There's no way. Die Hard 2 is a Christmas movie as well. Any movie that ends with Let It Snow sung by Vaughan Monroe is a Christmas movie. It just is. I'm going to have to dip into Netflix now because I've got a few things in my queue, like Troll 2. And I want to see K-pop Demon Hunters, which people tell me is good. I want to see Nouvelle Vague, the Richard Linklater movie about Breathless. I think it may be a day on the couch until I have to record the video about the things I've been watching lately. But it's only 8:40 in the morning here. So I've got time to go and do some perishable shopping and then sit down on the couch and watch some Netflix. And I think I'm inclined to do that because that double strength coffee I got from Hitman, and again, thank you to my brother-in-law Gavin for giving me a kilo of the strongest coffee in Australia to tide me over the holiday season. I'm really feeling the buzz from that double strength espresso. D. Lee says, no other choices. Another of my film festival screenings, Extreme Job Hunting with Byung-Hun Lee. That sounds interesting. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out of South Korea about the economic discrepancies. I mean, the obvious one being Parasite. But it really is a strong theme in South Korean cinema at the moment. Dick says it's 9:40 in the evening here in the UK. Yep. And today it's going to be 27. I'm going to love that. I love hot weather, love warm weather. Don't even mind humid weather. Sal doesn't like it as much as I do, but I love the hot weather. Doug says, people often speak of it as It's a Wonderful Life as being a lightweight Christmas movie. It's actually quite dark. It was even investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is a movie I don't particularly like because the banker gets away with it, which is not a message I really think should be out there. But I understand it is transgressive. And it was the movie that Frank Capra made after he came back from documentary shooting World War II. And I think there was a sea change in his attitude to things, as there was indeed for Jimmy Stewart, who was a bomber pilot during World War II. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, the angel thing I don't particularly like. It's not my kind of cinema, but a lot of people respect it. And it's still Sunday where Dick is. Monday's not a bad day. I'm talking from the future. Monday's going to be a good day. 4-star 100 says Madonna and Rosanna Arquette are both good in Desperately Seeking Susan. Yeah, but I think Madonna was playing the Madonna persona. She wasn't playing another character. And that's where the strength of that goes. Deb says, yep, no other choices on my list too. South Korean cinema, cool. But I think I'm going to be watching Troll 2 and K-pop Demon Hunters today. And then I'll get into recording the video about what I've been watching, apart from those two things. So I'm looking for that. I think I'm going to have a day of indulgence because we've got the funeral tomorrow. And that's going to be a very heavy day for very, very good reasons. But yeah, I definitely think Troll 2 is going to hit for me. Ramsar says, I'll rewatch Moulin Rouge 1952 on Pluto TV with ads and Moulin Rouge 2001 scene. Still prefer the latter with this modern music and dance. Fair enough. Captain Laser says, Project Hail Mary, any opinion yet? Looks worth so far. I like the idea. I've read the book and I want to see it as a movie. And it looks like they're doing it well. Baby Goose is doing a good job in that. So I definitely will review and watch Project Hail Mary when it comes out. Who are the actors most guilty of playing themselves rather than acting? That's a good question. I'll put that out to people to think of for themselves. Mostly it's people coming in from other things like comedians and musical people. They tend to play iterations of their own persona. Dodge Morgan says, quite like the 1949 film The Bishop's Wife as a Christmas film. Cary Grant as an angel once helped people disappear and they forget he was ever there. And Peter, thank you for that sweet time for that sweet sulfur dioxide. $20. Here you go, Peter, just for you. Thanks for that, mate. Appreciate the bump. Doug says, I think Dick Powers is a great superhero name or even an adult movie star name. It's probably why he chose it. No other choice is definitely worth seeing, says Dealey. Byung-Hun Lee doing physical comedy and not playing a cool guy. Nice. Rodney Dangerfield comes to mind. Yeah, comedians mostly. Rams, I said, no other choice is directed by Park Chan-wook, which gave us some of the best South Korean movies. Oh, boy. I love the Vengeance trilogy. All three of them are fantastic. Deb says, got to get on with my day. Take care, everyone, and hugs to me and Sally. Tomorrow will be tough, but the healing can start. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Deb. And stay out of that wind down there. And we got another 15 minutes to go. Dick Tracy would have been better with someone with more screen presence than Madonna. And also with someone with more screen presence than Warren Beatty had in Dick Tracy. Dick says, not sure how good I would be at either. Well, yeah, it's like any other job, Dick. You got to train for it. But yeah, Warren Beatty's keeping the IP rights to Dick Tracy by putting out half-hour Dick Tracy things every time the copyright is about to expire. So there's a whole bunch of really lame Dick Tracy half-hour things by Warren Beatty, who still thinks he can make it in his 80s playing Dick Tracy. It's a really weird intellectual property, and I don't think it's going to be another Dick Tracy movie while Warren Beatty is still above ground. Good soundtrack, though. The soundtrack was pretty good. They had a Sondheim song in there. And Madonna complained about the Stephen Sondheim song she had to sing in Dick Tracy. Because one of the things about Sondheim is he never repeats a lyric within the song. And so she had to learn all of the complex lyrics to the song. And it pissed her off because she didn't just have to repeat the refrain, which I appreciate. I like the fact that Sondheim messed her up, as he was wont to do. And I've just spilt water down myself, and hopefully not on my microphone, because I do have my little DJI mic there. Nope, I didn't spill it on there. So what's your favourite Stephen Sondheim song in a movie? I'll leave that one for you to play with. 4-star 100 says, Dick Tracy cartoons were more fun than the Warren Beatty movie. Watch them again. Because the Dick Tracy cartoons were incredibly racist. It's all over them. It's like, oh, so many racial stereotypes in those detectives here, like Joe Jitsu. It's as cringe as Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Ralph says, what's everyone's favourite score? I love Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, is that Basil Polidorus? I'm not sure. What's my favourite score? I really like the score to Young Girls of Rochefort that Jacques Demy did with Michel Legrand. Michel Legrand music in that is just fantastic. Franny says, is the Dick Tracy IP really worth anything, though? It was out of date when they made the movie. No, it's not. But Warren Beatty thinks it is. And that's the weird thing about it. So he keeps making these half-hour things he puts up on YouTube now about Dick Tracy, playing the character of Dick Tracy. And he thinks it's going somewhere, but it ain't. But it's like a hobby in his retirement that he keeps doing that. And so people are going, yeah, and pat him on the head and wipe the dribble off his mouth and let him get on with it. But yeah, Dick Tracy was of some, they did have science fiction aspects. The comic strip went to the moon, and there were moon people and flying bucket cars and all sorts of weird things in Dick Tracy in the later stages of the newspaper strip. That might make an interesting idea for a movie when Warren Beatty inevitably has to let go of it. Why can't I hit my mouth at the moment? Let's talk about Warren Beatty dribbling. Now I'm dribbling. So what other music scores do people like? Doug says, Dick Tracy's cartoon just brought back memories of other cartoons, Batfink and Milton and Monster. Batfink was good with karate. Again, a racial stereotype. Milton the Monster just hits because it's pretty clear that Milton is very camp and very gay, as indeed Count Kook and the other guy. They were almost like a couple. There's like a gay subtext to Milton the Monster that is a lot of fun. Friday says, Flash Gordon and Highlanders movie scores are great. Yeah, they're both by Queen, aren't they? Not particularly my bag, but I kind of like them. I think I can respect them. Flash Gordon I didn't like as a movie. I think Flesh Gordon is more interesting and fun to me than Flash Gordon, even though Flesh Gordon had a much smaller budget. D. Lee says, a Warren Beatty missed opportunity was Bullworth. A good concept spoiled by his wanting to have Halle Berry as his love interest and him rapping. Yeah, I'm trying to get that out of my mind. Adam says, Vergonia Sciolfisi by Ennio Morricone is a favourite, a Christmassy too. Cool, I don't know that one, but yeah, there's also really great, any number of Morricone soundtracks. I really love the one to Danger Diabolic in particular. I really like Nino Rota's score to La Dolce Vita. And there's a few Piero Piccione scores that are very good. Paris, Texas by Ry Cooder says Friday is an amazing score. Yeah. And Friday says every Morricone score. Yeah. I did listen to Morricone. They did an Italian version as a movie of Space 1999 where they clipped together a bunch of stuff for the Italian market. And there's like a synthy disco score by Ennio Morricone for Spazio 1999. And it's kind of a bit of a banger. So that one's worth checking out on Spotify if you can. I did put it in one of my playlists as well. But the disco score to Space 1999 by Ennio Morricone is a thing that exists. And it's fun. Not his best work, but still, it is fun. I think middle-aged good girl's up, but she's lurking at the moment because I heard her let the cats in. Friday says they have the 3 Space 1999 movies downstairs at CEX. Yeah, Imprint just put out a box set of them as well, with the Italian ones on top of that, which was a bit of fun. But I think Space 1999 is probably digested best as those movie compilations. Doug says the Jerry Goldsmith scores to the James Coburn Flint movies always make me smile. Yeah, they're very groovy, those ones. And the James Coburn Flint movies are fun too. I rewatched them, I think, about a year or two ago and had a bit of fun with them. Just like the Matt Helm films are fun at a certain level. All 4 Matt Helm films that Dean Martin did. They were fun. Well, I saw those on Saturday matinees. They were showing them to kids, even though there was like Sid Charisse doing a partial striptease in them and all the sexual innuendo in them. Dodge Morgan says, Space 1999 episode Dragon's Domain freaked me out as a kid. Yep. Friday says, Stridulum, a.k.a. the Visitor score, is great. I've heard a part of that one, and yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing too to remember is all of the fantastic blaxploitation soundtrack scores that are out there. There's some incredible stuff there, like Superfly and even Shaft and Trouble Man all have fantastic soundtracks. And even weird shit like Dolomite has a bit of a banger of a soundtrack to it as well. And Cotton Comes to Harlem has a great soundtrack. Friday says 70s funk is the best. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. And one of the things that Dolomite does really well, and also Disco Godfather and Human Tornado, they show some bits and pieces from real nightclub acts in Harlem and in LA. I think in LA mostly, of real nightclub act, 1970s funk bands, and that works well. And even the French Connection has a scene in a nightclub with a really good act in it. Ramsar says Michel Legrand's soundtrack to Summer of 42. Yeah, I also like his soundtrack to Never Say Never Again, the James Bond movie. A lot of people hate that soundtrack, but I like it. D. Lee says Philip Glass's score to Koyaanisqatsi is basically narrates the film. Yep. Adam says the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 score. Yeah, I can see that. Vangelis Blade Runner, excellent score, made the movie. Took a long time to come out on the soundtrack recording for some reason. Might have been rights issue. That often is with those things. And also the soundtracks to the first 4, maybe 6 James Bond films. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Thunderball, Goldfinger, and You Only Live Twice. Those rich John Barry scores with the strings. Just an incredible run of movie scores in those ones. And, Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones and Matt Monro singing the theme songs. All bangers, all great stuff. And I love all of those soundtracks. I should put out a playlist of the best James Bond music that I've got. That might be fun. Also, Adele's soundtrack to Skyfall, her theme song to Skyfall is pretty good. And You Know My Name from Casino Royale. That works as well. And the nice thing is there's a kind of thematic consistency between those early John Barry scores and some of the stuff during the Daniel Craig era. There are motifs and themes that go all the way through from the early 1960s to the 2010s that really work. Jack Nitch's Cutter's Way, Blue Collar. Yeah, I can see those as well. Cutter's Way is just such an underrated film. Dodger Morgan says, said this before, John Barry's Ipcrest file is excellent. Came with a movie and a novel in a box set. Cool. I agree. The Ipcrest file one is really great with those kind of twangy, percussive beats in it. Friday says, Candyman, Philip Glass, I believe he's still annoyed that he was conned into doing a horror movie. There's also other things like the theme music that the Walker Brothers did for Deadlier Than the Male. Their theme song and that is great. And they hated it because it was such a shit movie. Ramsar says, Philip Glass's soundtrack really paces Koyaanisqatsi, which I first saw on MTV in 1983. Koyaanisqatsi is an experience. It's one of those movies that just washes over you, along with the sequel. They're just immersive in the best possible way. Foresight 100 says, I love the driveway scene in Cutter's Way. I like the driveway scene in Boogie Nights as well. But Cutter's Way, I know I've got the imprint Blu-ray of Cutter's Way. I've got to drag it out and rewatch it soon. After I watch all those things I've mentioned on Netflix, like K-pop Demon Hunters and Troll 2. I've got to watch those first because I'm in the mood for that. Almost time to go. Not quite yet, but it's almost time to go. Any last-minute comments people want to make? Friday says, Hellraiser has a great soundtrack, but even better is the Coil soundtrack that was written but not used for the film. GRR Studios, but was available on CD. Haven't heard it, but I'm willing to believe you. Okay, people, we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast. Our time has passed, and we must end our show. Thank you, Forsal. Thank you, Ramsar. Thank you, Franny. Glad they couldn't get Blue Moon for American Werewolf. Bad Moon Rising fits so much better. Good night, Adam. Good night, Franny. Take care, Dick. Everybody, take care. Ralph says, just on the Vegemite hat, did that live president get his human rights on? No, I like my Vegemite hat. It's culturally appropriate. Happy trails, Simcath. Thanks, Dodge Morgan. And I will catch all of you guys later. You take care. And I will end the stream now.